Hi, I'm Tony Nichols. Welcome to Chamber Chat. Welcome to Chamber Chat, a program put together by the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce for the sole purpose of keeping you informed of what's going on at the Chamber. In future editions, we'll be covering divisional topics related to the inner workings of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as having sponsored guests speaking to a specific industry. And we'll always try to have a relevant topic to the business community and/or community at large. To kick things off with us on this first program, we have Brad Gillis with Sperry Van Ness, the current president of the Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you, Tony.
You've had 3 or 4 months now to get your feet wet as to the new president of the Chamber. Tell us how your transition has been.
Well, I think it started off late last year in 2013. Hurricane Sandy came through, and we went through a physical remodel.
Yes.
And that was at the end of the day, a blessing in disguise. It really gave us an opportunity to dress up the building and kick things off for coming into the 2014 year. At that same relative time, Brad Belichico, our former executive director, gave in his resignation and moved on to short transit. Mm-hmm. And from that, we did a comprehensive, in-depth, wide-reaching national search for an executive director. And I think after and of course you were part of that as well, but over 100 applications, mm-hmm. Multiple interviews via Skype, via in-person, I can say it was a learning lesson for myself as well, just going through that process. So the hiring of our new executive director, Ernie Colburn, mm-hmm. Who's also a past president, so he's got the in-depth knowledge of our chamber, and we feel very confident that he's going to be our change agent, and he's going to be the person to help us make the chamber even more relevant and become that indispensable business resource that we really think that we are, and we're going to shout that from the rooftops. I also, let's see, we can talk about the transition in regards to structure.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes. You certainly had a good taste of a prelude of things to come, if you will, in terms of the change with the restructure of the chamber and the search for the new executive director. But give us, we've only got a limited amount of time here because I know there's a lot of moving parts at the chamber, but mm-hmm. give us a 50,000-foot view, if you will, of some of those changes that are going on with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, I mean that's right in my wheelhouse, and I'm a self-professed not a detail guy. So 50,000 feet or 30,000 feet, it's a good view for me. At the end of the day, we really want to be focused on relevancy. We want to be focused on events that are timely and specific to what's happening in our business community. We are a four-star accredited chamber, and have been for, I think, since the 60s. And it's time to not only have those 4 stars, but actually strive for the 5th star. Mm-hmm. And that means focusing on advocacy, administration, community outreach, membership, and also business and economic development. Those are our focus. Those are our new divisions. And the chamber has evolved, or in the past has been involved in potentially too many events. Mm-hmm. I think at one time we counted we have over 400 events. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a ribbon cutting down to a business after hours down to a Salisbury festival. So with that said, we really need to look at the number of events and what we're involved in, and how to really focus on quality versus quantity.
Sure, that makes sense. The buzzword at the chamber these days, and quite frankly, a lot of people don't realize, I was involved in meetings 2 years ago, and the buzzword then was becoming relevant.
Yep.
So that certainly is a buzzword at the chamber now. But tell me what was not relevant, maybe, and what's changing to make things more relevant with the chamber.
Mm-hmm. I think it really goes back to basics. What is our membership want to see? How can we recruit those members? How can we retain those members? and how can we also recognize those members. And a big part of what the Chamber does is advocacy, and that is creating the best possible stage for that business to work from. And I think the biggest change is our focus and our drive, and ensuring that we're listening to our members. And we feel very confident that now is one of the best times. We're coming out of a recession. We have, in my opinion, great community leadership right now, and if there's ever a time, it's now. And with whether it's coming out of a recession, banking interest rates very low, I mean, just all the tools and resources are right there. And our partnerships, I think, are again better than ever when it comes to local institutions and even educational institutions. We have the relationships, we have the tools, and let's get it done.
Yeah, we're certainly blessed with having a lot of institutional knowledge, whether it be in the corporations here, the hospital in Purdue, and all of the universities as well. So it's really an exciting time to be talking about becoming relevant with the Chamber. I'm hearing good things about something that initially there may have been a little pushback with. You changed the format of something that had been an institution, quite frankly, for some time with the Chamber of Commerce, the newsletter, the News and Notes newsletter. In your mind, it was time for a change. Tell us what you did with it.
Yeah. Well, any business person, which is our membership, will probably get 50 to 200 emails a day. And our News and Notes was an email that went out bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. And that was filled with just a lot of robust information. I mean, whether it was a partnering nonprofit that had an event that we were advertising for them, or it could have been who the guest speaker is for the general membership luncheon, or even just pictures from a business after hours. And the content was great. I mean, it was rich, it was robust, it was relevant, and I think that email format was getting lost in the shuffle. And I found myself, as involved as I am, guilty of not reading the News and Notes. So, I mean, I think through partnerships with yourself and Chamber staff, we were able to create the new website. Also prior, I guess Sandy Fitzgerald-Angelo, was really instrumental in creating that new website.
That's right.
And as a bonus, if you will, I think yourself and Chamber staff and Matisse Interactive were instrumental in putting together the blog format. And of course, we're calling that the Chamber Voice. And SalisburyArea.com, and you can click on it right in the top right-hand corner. And that's where all that robust content is now going to be hosted. And it's searchable, I think, via date and keyword. So it's no longer trying to find that old email that you're like, when was that event, and when is it, or who is it? And now it's a great format for promoting our members and what they're doing, and also getting the word out. I mean, I'm constantly seeing the views increase, and it depends on what the content is. Some get better, some get worse.
It's a hot item, it's going to get more views.
Yeah. So I would absolutely like to see people begin to comment more and more on those articles, and we're open to our membership and wanting that content to be putting on that source. It's only going to get better, and it's already it's gotten fabulous reviews so far.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind you that you're watching Chamber Chat on Pack 14. And Brad, you just made a statement that jogged my memory. You said, as busy as you are. I've actually seen your program of work. How is it that a guy that is involved as you are, how do you find the time to plug into something like the Chamber and the reorganization and the structure and all the moving parts? How do you find the time to do that?
I think that it's not necessarily about myself. It's about the team that we have, and the program of work was a tool that I saw we could collaborate and call it what it is. It was a to-do list for myself. We all have them. It's just a matter of looking at them on a regular basis and figuring out what you do and do not want to do. So that 2013-2014 program of work is straight from the strategic plan that we recently put together to strive for those 5 stars. So you'll see in that program of work, it's very driven by that strategic plan, and every objective comes from that 30,000, 50,000 foot view. And you know, again, call it what it was, but it's just keeping me honest as far as what I do and do not need to do.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you keep giving me good talking points. How many bullet items or action items would you say were on your list, and what percentage of those would you say have been crossed off?
Sure. It's only a page. The font, I think, is maybe like 10 or 12.
Okay.
You know, so you know, it's just based on our, I think, 6 strategic objectives. And you know, for instance, some of those are building membership and you know, getting to that 1,000 member threshold. Another one is simply take credit cards. Let's have a renewable membership plan that takes credit cards. Some are as simply as let's get the patron program up and running, which has been a huge success of finding different revenue sources for the chamber to help recognize our members in our regular occurring events. So Ernie Colburn, our executive team, everyone's been instrumental in ensuring that we're crossing the list off. So
you mentioned the patron program. I think we certainly should give credit where credit's due.
Absolutely.
Stephanie Willie has really taken that program and taken ownership of it and is doing a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, to a new level.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned a few minutes ago the 5-star, how we're currently a 4-star accredited, the only accredited chamber in the state of Maryland. What does that mean to Salisbury? What does that mean to the chamber?
It means that Salisbury is the capital of the Eastern Shore.
Okay.
I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where your economy is. This is where your institutions are. This is where your employment centers are. I mean, to do a groundbreaking, this is a little off topic, but I mean, to do a groundbreaking at Jubilant Cadista for 200 more jobs,
cool.
you know, you're not going to see that in many towns on the Eastern Shore. You know, but going back to what is 5 stars, it's only increasing the caliber of our chamber. Currently, right now, the U.S. chamber says that there is about a little over 20,000 chambers in the United States, and of that, only a few hundred are actually accredited. So that could be 1 star to 5 stars. And so if you look and zero in on how many are actually accredited 4 stars, you'll find that there's less than 50. So
out of 20,000.
Out of 20,000. So our Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, and you know, it gives me goosebumps to say, you know, is in the top 0.01% within its field.
Yeah.
And you know, that's because of our prior leaderships and because of our legacy. And again, that gives us the tools and resources to only build from.
Well, Brad, I'd like to thank you for joining us on Chamber Chat. We hope you can come back with us in the future.
I thank you for the opportunity, and also thank you, Tony and PAC 14, for having the opportunity. This is huge for our community to continue to get the word out about our membership and what we're doing at the Chamber.
That's great. We'd like to give you an opportunity now to view some of the upcoming events for the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be back in a moment. Well, welcome back to Chamber Chat here on PAC 14, and joining us now is Dr. Memo Diriker with Beacon at Salisbury University and also President-elect for the Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Memo.
My pleasure to be here.
Memo, there's been a lot of discussion about and perspective on the changes going on with the Chamber of Commerce. Give us your 50,000-foot view, if you will, of what's going on with the Chamber.
Well, the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce has been a fixture of our community for well over a century now. It has been there through thick and thin, and it has been a big support to the business community and continues to be a big supporting organization for the business community. But it is now time for the Chamber to be an even more important, more relevant voice for the entirety of our business
There's that
community.
word again, relevant.
The relevance, exactly. And what is happening now is that we are looking at what has happened, we're building on that strength, we're looking at the environment, we're looking at what is needed by our business members, by our community, and we are bringing the important parts of the community together to be able to better serve our membership. Chamber doesn't exist without the membership. It begins with the membership, it ends in the membership. But in between, the Chamber is a powerful organization that can do things not only for the business community, but the community at large as well. And that's what we're trying to do with our changes.
Sure. You led us through, with the help of a couple of other people, through what many people on the outset would say, why are you doing that? It's too painful. It's going to be too hard. But you helped lead us through and currently are still working in the process, finalizing things, for the new strategic plan for the Chamber of Commerce. Why did we need one? Why do we need all the changes? And how do you see how the process is to date?
Well, the process started with Ernie Coleman's presidency when we were putting together our accreditation self-study for our reaccreditation process. And what we realized is that, first of all, we have a splendid organization, extraordinary organization, well-deserving of its 4 stars. But you know, if we have 4 stars, why can we not have 5 stars? So we made the decision to, in the next 5 years, go towards that 5-star. When you make a decision like that, when you identify a destination, it behooves you to put together a roadmap. So we said, let's put together this 5-year roadmap that is going to make us even more important for our members, that is going to enable us to serve our members even better, more relevant, as we said. So how are we going to do that? Well, the way businesses, like the businesses we represent, do it is through a strategic plan.
Right.
So we asked this innocent question. We said, what did the last strategic plan say? Well, lo and behold, in the 100+ years history of the Chamber, we had not had a real, honest-to-goodness strategic plan. There were plans there, usually the work plan of each president for that year, but there was no strategic, longer vision-type plans. It had a mission, but not really a vision. Through this decision to be even more relevant for our membership, we created a new vision. We adapted our mission to fit who and what we are today. We crafted the vision to articulate that destination that we're seeking to arrive at. And now we have this very, very well-designed strategic plan that we're putting the finishing touches on. Credit does go here to our immediate past presidents, Sandy Fitzgerald Angelo, and Pohanka organization, who lent us their strategic planner, Brian, who came and facilitated a retreat for us where very strong A-type individuals from big to small organizations came together, and he made us see eye to eye after a very short period of time, and suddenly everything became clear. Not only the destination, but that roadmap became clear. And we arrived at the conclusion that we needed a number of strategic directions. We arrived at 6 strategic directions. We said we have certain goals. We said we have 3 short-term, 2 medium-term, 1 long-term goals, and we are going to do whatever it takes to arrive at that destination in these 5 years. And of course, when you decide to do something like that, one of the first things you ask yourself is, do we have the infrastructure in place to be able to do that? So we decided to take that on.
What are some of the things that, in deciding that you needed to go through the strategic planning process, what are some of the things that you identified that were just over the top in terms of comings and goings of the old chamber, if you will, and how have we made the transition? And also include some bumps, because it's not all been rosy. So what have been some of the bumps in the road? But how does that process look now compared to before?
And I'm so glad you used the word process, because it is a process. You don't take a 100+ year organization that has been operating on annual plans and give a 5-year and even longer strategic plan overnight.
That's right.
You have to really understand all the moving parts of that organization and put together a plan that is going to take a little bit of time to not only design but implement. So what we did was, as we did our analysis of what's happening internally to the organization, what's happening externally in our environment, we developed a set of strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and we identified certain opportunities and threats. And by the time we started linking those strengths to our strengths to the external opportunities, by the time we linked our weaknesses to external threats, suddenly we started seeing opportunities to better the organization. One of the things we found out, for example, is that our organizational structure, both on the staff side as well as on the volunteer side, had evolved over time completely organically without a good strategic reason behind each one of its components. The resultant organization was an incredibly complicated entity with a lot of direct as well as dotted lines going from one part to the other and then making a U-turn and coming back again. And we had, if memory serves, well over 30 moving pieces to an organization that has only 5 staff members and 800 plus members. So we said, this is, if we were running this as a business, this is not how we would do this. We said, do we need all these different committees? Do we need all these different lines going from one part to the other?
I remember a number being thrown out in terms of events. How many events were taking place?
Well, that's the other thing. When you have that many moving pieces, each moving piece decides to do things to essentially justify its existence. So at one time, we had more events than there are days in the work week. So for a chamber of 800 members to have 400 events in a year, and usually when you look at a year, a work year, there are really 200 usable days in that work year. In those 200 days, to have 400 distinct events for a membership of 800 with 30 plus committees made no sense. At the time each one was created and at the time each event was put together, it made sense. But there was no cohesion, no rhyme or reason, and there was no cross-pollination. What we did was we completely redesigned both the staff and the volunteer organizational structure, simplified it, reduced the number of moving parts, and we came up with, we said we have 6 strategic directions, so we must have 6 divisions. Each division looking at one of those strategic directions and is responsible for that. Within the division, we differentiated between governance activities and member benefit activities, and member engagement activities. Member engagement activities, we said, are going to be the networks. These are the special interest groups that people come together, such as the health and, care network, such as the PR and marketing network. Whatever industry you belong to can have its own network. But we also have governance committees, such as our budget and finance committee, where decisions are made to help the board and the executive committee of the board run the organization. So that was one part of it. The other part was, how do you go from 400 distinct events to a smaller number that is better manageable, but, again, that word, more relevant to the membership? That idea of bringing the networks under divisions and enabling them to meet as a division rather than separately by each group made this cross-pollination was going to happen. Instead of 3 different events happening over the same topic within days of each other with slight nuanced differences, now these different groups would come together and design a better, bigger event that was much more relevant to the audiences they were addressing.
Very good. Again, we'd like to remind you that you're watching Chamber Chat on PAC 14. Memo, as all these changes are beginning to take root and to become, even the vernacular has to change, and what you call something a committee in the former structure to a network now. Even that was, for many of us, challenging to begin just to parrot those words. Tell me some of the challenges that any organization would face, but certainly challenges that we have faced in making that shift.
Well, change is inevitable. It's all around us. It happens all the time, but we always, always resist it. I don't care what you call yourself. I'm a change agent, whatever. We always resist change. This is human nature. We have our comfort zones, and uncertainty unsettles us. And when you bring change, automatically, by definition, you're bringing uncertainty.
Right.
So every single one of us was questioning bits and pieces of this massive change that was happening. When you put it all together, intellectually we all understand this is good. But the process of getting from what it was to what it is and what it's going to be, they are going to be, as you said earlier, bumps. And we surely face some bumps. For example, at the very beginning, when we designed it on a whiteboard, certain things that looked logical no longer look logical when we were trying to implement them. So, as we mentioned earlier, this being a process, we're using the process to fine-tune some of these changes, including sometimes making name changes. For example, what we call networks today, at the very beginning on the whiteboard, were being called focus areas.
That's right.
Well, a lot of people were forgetting the phrase focus area, and they were replacing it with the phrase focus group, which means something completely different. Right. So those kinds of unintended consequences, the resistance to change, were all coming together that was requiring us, the members of the board, to be a little bit more involved with the membership, with the committee members, with the network members, to explain, to hold a little bit of hand, do a little bit of hand-holding. But we are already seeing incredible dividends. The amount of advocacy that is being done by this chamber is unprecedented. We've never been able to be this impactful in our communities.
All right, you're still in my thunder, because well, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was you yourself a few minutes ago brought up relevancy. What are some of those things that you can point to from a definitive standpoint that the chamber is becoming more relevant, and this is how?
Well, as I said earlier on, the chamber doesn't exist without its membership. We begin and end with the members, but the members need us to be there for them, and the members need us to represent them in front of public policy decision makers, because the playing field in which we conduct our businesses is not under our control. It's under the control of public policy decision makers. We need to have a solid connection to those public policy decision makers to be able to let them know the consequences of their actions, the consequences of their decisions, intended as well as unintended, on the business community, and therefore on our community at large, because majority of the workforce is employed by the business community. So this advocacy is one of those ways in which we become very impactful. We are the spokesperson for the small business that cannot afford to have their own representative. We are the group that brings together big corporations in our community to get synergy out of their size in front of public policy decision makers, and sometimes with each other, with trade groups. This part of the chamber change is moving incredibly successfully. Another one we see is something I mentioned briefly earlier, is the cross-pollination. When we bring different special interest groups that we now call networks together, they are now communicating with each other instead of operating as silos.
All right, that platform, that was one of the things I wanted to get to. The platform of how these events are put together has gone from the silos that you were speaking of, and how everyone was doing their own thing and really no cross-pollination, to a platform now that will allow the divisions within the chamber to know what the other division is doing.
Absolutely.
And then plug into that. But
absolutely.
in that platform, I remember in the strategic planning process, we developed 3 questions.
Oh, yeah.
A triangle, if you will.
Absolutely.
Can you speak to
Absolutely.
that?
What we want our various decision makers throughout the organization to do is answer 3 questions anytime they propose any kind of activity, any kind of event, any kind of program. First question we want them to ask is it good for the chamber? Then we want to say, is it good for the community? And we also don't want to give away our scarce resources, so we want to have a return on investment. This return on investment is not necessarily just financial.
Sure.
It can be the impact, it can be the outcome, it can be the result of the activity. So we want it to be good for the chamber, we want it to be good for the community. Community means our membership and beyond, and we want it to be a good return on investment based on the people power we put to make these things happen. And that is exactly what's happening. Now, if you look at the current structure, it's a little bit like a spider web. When something happens anywhere in the spider web, everybody knows it's happening.
That's a good way to think of it. Very good. Well, Dr. Diriker, we appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. We welcome you back anytime you want to come. And we look forward to seeing you as a president next year, and the things that we'll see what your item list will be, and implementation of whatever ideas that you might have.
Thank you very much for having me here.
We'd like to thank you for joining Chamber Chat. If you have any suggestions on topics, or you would like to appear on Chamber Chat, we encourage you to contact the Chamber of Commerce to do so. And also, if there are any episodes or editions of Chamber Chat that you'd like to revisit, we encourage you to go to PAC 14's website and utilize their on-demand feature, or you can view episodes on the Chamber's blog, The Chamber Voice. Well, that's a wrap for this edition of Chamber Chat. I'm Tony Nichols, your host, encouraging you to make a difference.